Well, I was born, more or less born and raised in the little town of Belleville, a population of 500 people. And my father had a meat market right on Main Street, and we had our home on Main Street. And at 9 o'clock at night, everything was closed and we'd go home, you know. And we didn't know anything about drugs or alcohol or things like that. And there were no divorces in the whole town of Belleville. And nobody was rich, but we all had enough to eat, and we were just sort of a united community where everyone loved each other, and we were just a united family. All three of us went to University of Wisconsin. I don't know how we did it or how our parents could afford it, because some days we'd take in $3, $4 a day in my dad's business. And yet they sacrificed themselves and sent all three of us through the University of Wisconsin. And my brother Edwin became professor at Toledo University and was a very bright guy. He was valedictorian of his class. And my brother Bill and I both played ball at the University of Wisconsin. When they talked about the great names in Wisconsin history, I was one of them, one of the 5 or 6 guys that they mentioned. That made me feel good. Dave Wiedeward wrote about it. I was the only one in the state, I think, to pitch no-hitters at the high school, amateur, semi-pro, and college level. And I hold the record in the state of Wisconsin, and it was because my brother Bill was such a good catcher, and he helped me so much. Yeah, I signed with the Cubs in 41 to 42, 41, at the end of 41, but then I went in service instead of going to the Cubs. I could have gone there because I was exempt from service, but my 2 brothers were in, and so I felt that I should do it too. But then they didn't know it at Navy. I went to Great Lakes and didn't tell them that I was rejected from the Army. And there wasn't much of a physical there, you know. In the Navy, you didn't have to do any marching or anything like that. So I was able to get in. That's when I first enlisted, and I was a seaman when I first got in. And I made rapid advancements through till I became complete commander. This is my brother Edwin, who was professor at the university. He was captain in the Air Force. He flew many bombing missions. I'm very proud of him. Here are the 3 of us, Ed, Bill, and myself. That was taken about 1944. Well, it's a very secret organization, it was. We were the ones that did the fighting in the war, you know what I mean? We were on merchant ships, and I was commanding officer, and I gave all the orders when submarines or air attacks would come. I'd tell them when to shoot and where to shoot and so on and so forth. And I did something that I wasn't supposed to do. I kept log books. My brother Edwin told me to keep a log, so I got a record of every day that I was in service and what happened and so on and so forth. And 65 years later, I like to look back at it. Brings back memories, some good and some not so good. Yeah. Well, Jack Kennedy, we had a great relationship. We had a lot in common. My wife and I and a guy by the name of Paul Corbin sponsored his first speech that he went on for when he was running for President of the United States in 1959. And when we met, we found out that we were the same age, and we both played baseball at our respective colleges. He was at Harvard, and I played at the University of Wisconsin. And we were very fortunate in that we married. Both of us married very beautiful girls, and Jack was good looking too. And we both had sons by the name of John, and he had girls and I had girls, and they're very nice. And the final thing was we both became presidents. He became president of the United States, and I became president of Saxer Sporting Goods. So there's a little difference there, but not too much. So anyway, we had a lot in common, and he was frankly one of my heroes. Yeah, I went in business with a guy by the name of Bobby Cook. He was an All-American basketball player, and we were friends at the university. But then he signed and he played with the Sheboygan team in the National Basketball League. And he was getting $25,000, $30,000 at the time, which doesn't sound like much to you now, but that was big salary. And so he said he was just going to play with them a year, But then the next year he got a bigger contract, and I'm working 12 months and he's working 6 months. We're buddies and all that, but it still isn't fair. I said, so either you buy me out or I'll buy you out. And he said, well, I'm making big money in the basketball, so he said, I'll sell it out to you. I was one of the first people with Bob Geis and Bob Collins to start Little League program. And it all originated in my store, and all the organizational meetings were held there. And the sign-ups, when the kids would come to sign up, the 300-400 of them would come into my store. And I also paid back for what some people did for me when I was a kid. Yeah, I have some very good friends, name a few of them, Jim Bowman.
He tells me he's intelligent with politics. Of course, he remembers Adam and Eve, so you know, he's been around a long time. So
Bill Miner and Dave Hatton.
What words would I use? He's a patriot. As you well know, probably from reading his editorials in the paper, he's fairly religious about that.
Although I do know that he has given lessons here at the country club on putting for years and years and years. Usually a small tip, $20, and he'll improve your putting. But it's got to be an uphill putt. That's the only thing he could putt in his entire life was uphill putts. So
I think he's probably more personable and more loyal to his friends. He values his friendships, and that's a wonderful thing to have.
I happen to be in the minority because they're all good Republicans, and they have more money than I have, and that makes them Republicans.